Welcome. You've crossed the veil to the SMP Paranormal Show. And welcome, everybody, to the SMP Paranormal Show. I'm your host, Dan Holroyd of the Southern Michigan Paranormals, based right here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We do all of Michigan, not just Southern Michigan. But I'm pretty excited about the guest, which is our first show of 2019. We did a preliminary test show, which I've got aired, but this is the number one show for 2019. And it's with an investigator, a paranormal investigator by the name of Jason Griffith. I've known Jason for a couple of years now. He's 34 years old. He's the father of 3 children, beautiful wife. And he's been looking into the paranormal for well over 15 years. He's been with SMP at least going on 3, if not 4. At least it seems like that. And without further ado, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I know we were talking off air, and basically you're sitting by the fire down at your home there in Sturgis, Michigan, and just kind of chilling. And we're sitting and being very patient with me because it took a little bit to get this thing fixed so we could do the show.
Yes. Well, after working with you on many investigations, patience is key.
Great. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Just joking.
Yeah. He kids.
Yeah, a kid.
Again, I think we've known each other now at least 4 years. I think we're going on 4 years, because I know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really put like a timestamp on it, but it's crazy to sit and look at something from where you're at and then try to course back to where the beginning was and think, oh my gosh, like look how much time has passed in between this, because you always got to look towards the future. Like, what's our next project? What's our next investigation? What's the next thing that we're going to do? And it's good to sometimes reflect back on how long we've been together. And yeah, it's quite surprising to see that things have moved along pretty quickly.
That's true. And I know we talk a lot about, you feel that at times that you're not able to be a part of a lot of things that we do because, you still got little ones. My kids are a little older, so I've got a little more leeway there. But honestly, you just hit really on the head right there, because looking back, you and I have done actually quite a bit together in the last couple of years, so it seems like we've known each other even longer. But we've done some fun projects. But before we get into that, because I do want to touch on that Colin case and us working at Baroque and stuff. But again, before we jump way ahead to that, what got you, as a young man, what got you kind of interested in the world of the paranormal? And is it just the interest in the spirit and ghost aspect, or is it across the board like me, where it's UFO, cryptozoology, anything that's out of the norm?
I am 100% across the board. I love a good mystery. And to kind of touch on my background, because I knew I was going to come into this interview, so I've been mulling this question for like a week now.
Yeah.
And I always, growing up in my grandma's house, it was a very old house. It was a house that was built in early 1800s in a very old, what used to be a cattle town. So the house had history. The village I grew up in had history.
Oh, that's Baroque, right? Baroque, Michigan.
And that's Baroque.
Right.
And being in my grandma's house, I never really knew it at the time. I was always searching for something. I was digging through drawers. I was, it wasn't like a frantic ADHD searching, but it was like a gnawing at the back of my brain where it's like, you should look. And so I would always just look and look and look. And it didn't really hit me until later on when we started investigating my grandma's house, and because the people that were living there with us, pretty much all the occupants in the house were having separate paranormal things happen to us. And we all just kind of kept it secret from each other until one day, just random happenstance, we bundled in to each other's conversation where we were talking about these things. It all kind of came to a head. So looking back on it, the paranormal thing was something that was always there for me. And I always say, like growing up in a haunted house, it kind of, just kind of melts into you in a way.
Right.
Talking to, my aunt when she was still alive, my grandpa was very sensitive on my mom's side. My grandpa on my mom's side was very sensitive to the spiritual aspect of things. And even my great-grandparents on my mom's side were very in tune with the spiritual aspect of things.
And you know that because did they used to share that with you or talk about it openly, or how'd you?
No, it was always secondhand information. I got a lot of information through my aunt. But they were like, there were family stories. My aunt would be like, well, her grandma, was my great grandma.
Yeah.
So she'd be like, well, grandma told me this one time, that, there's the famous story that grandpa got up in the middle of the night and went to the kitchen to grab a drink of water, and he looks out the window, and there's a woman, an older woman, dressed in black, with two peg legs, walking down the middle of the street. And so he goes out of the house and he follows her. And he's watching her walk down the street, and she's pointing every now and then at certain houses. And within the week, every house that she happened to point at had burnt down.
Wow.
That was one of my family stories.
That is, you need to, because I know you're a writer. We'll talk about that too. So remind me. But wow, you should write that down. That's a hell of a story. Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah,
that's creepy.
It is creepy. So some other stories I grew up with were when my grandparents first bought the house that they were in, they kept having experiences of somebody, just some random drunk that they always assumed, come pound on the door outside and screaming. And every time my grandpa would go outside, there was nothing.
What in the world?
And,
that's wow.
Yeah, and the front door that we had there, the whole time growing up, we would have trouble with it staying latched in the frame.
Uh-huh.
Even if you locked it, and it was right in front of, so you would come in the front door and then you would automatically go up a flight of stairs to get to the upstairs. And you'd hear people walking up and down the stairs, and we didn't use the upstairs. We just used the lower floor. And man, I tell you, you'd hear people walking upstairs, and yeah, my grandma's.
Now,
my grandma's house,
that house built before your grandparents moved into it, or did they build it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it was
built. They bought it. They ended up buying it in the 60s.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that house very well could have been there then, since. Do you know how long the house has been there? I guess that's what I was getting at.
I had the abstract. At one point, I had the abstract that told me the year the house was built and all the people that owned the house. Because we were trying to look back into the history of the house to see who owned it.
Right.
Because we were just finding some weird stuff, and
yeah.
And as more people came in to investigate this house, it seemed like the activity kept amping up, and it would have been great to have the S&P team there, because being my first kind of experience and learning on the spot, I made a couple of rookie mistakes. So a lot of my information that I gathered at this time, I kind of disregarded. I'd love the chance to go back and study this house.
Next time it's up for sale or empty, maybe we should go look into that. Now, do you remember what year exactly the thing was built, or did you mention that already?
Yeah, it was early 1800s. I don't remember the exact date. But the weird thing that I remember about this house on the abstract, and this is what they had listed on the abstract,
Mm-hmm.
was that everybody who owned this house was deemed mentally incompetent, and the house went back to the state.
Holy moly.
Yeah, so every time the house was either put up for auction or the house was taken back by the bank or, whatever. So, my grandma ended up getting Alzheimer's, and so she went to go live someplace else.
Right.
And, and it happened again. The house went back to the bank. It was auctioned
Now,
off.
did your grandpa die early in life, or did he get old
He
and
did.
get the same dementia or anything like that?
No, my grandpa didn't get dementia. My grandpa ended up having, I think it was leukemia, and he ended up dying
that's
in the
sad.
home.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually got to die at home, in that house in '97.
Yeah, so not that long ago.
Right.
Now, did you have anything happen in there when you lived there, do you think, because of Grandpa passing
Oh,
away in
yeah.
the house? Yeah.
Oh, because of my grandpa passing away. The only thing that we had, and this was kind of neat, because I was here for this one.
Mhm.
I mean, my aunt had bought a camera,
Mm-hmm.
and she was testing out this digital camera. And so she's like, well, take a picture of me. And so she sits down in the chair in the spot where my grandpa's hospital bed was at in the living room.
Right.
And we take her picture, and then there's windows behind her, and the shades are down, so that there's like a perfect, flat spot for a background.
Sure.
And we take a picture, and you can see the shadow of her sitting in the chair. On one side of her, same level as, like, just as if somebody was sitting down, the same kind of adjusted height, is the perfect shape of something that's not there beside her that looks like a man wearing a hat, which would have been my grandpa because he always wore a hat. And then on the other side is the perfect shape of the top of somebody's head, that would have, like, hair. Because I'm bald, so it wasn't me. But
Me either.
there was
Yeah.
nothing there. Yeah, but there was nothing there to cast that reflection. So
Now, does your family does your family still have that picture? Do you know?
I don't even know what happened to that camera. Because it was
Oh.
a digital camera. I don't think we have that picture anymore.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what happened to it. I
That-
might be able to find
And
it.
that happens a lot. We've taken pictures and we thought we've downloaded. So yeah,
Well,
that
and
happens.
you and I have even talked about having things mysteriously disappear off of the evidence after we've even already seen it.
Oh yeah,
and heard it.
Oh yeah, right off my camera, several times. So
Yeah.
so that house has had its bevy of activity. I mean, did you start looking
Yeah.
outside the home? I mean, were things happening in Baroque itself that you got interested in, or?
The house pretty much shaped me.
Okay.
Because even growing up, okay, because there was like a before and an after.
Uh huh.
So the before is before my aunt met the person that she's married to now, who has a deep interest in the paranormal as well. So the before, this house, the easiest way for me to describe it was like walking into a tropical rainforest, because the air was so thick that you felt it. You felt walking into it, and you always felt like there was something on top of you.
I remember you. I
You
remember.
always felt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember you telling me
Telling
that,
me
and when we first met, which is kind of a strange story in itself, but kind of funny. But you
Right.
you took me to that house because you were living in that house at the time, correct?
No, I
Was this
actually
a different
wasn't.
house?
We'd lost it. Yeah. This
Oh,
was-
okay.
um,
Because
I
I
was probably-
I didn't mean to jump ahead. I felt something weird in that house too first time I met you. But go ahead. I didn't mean to
Well,
interrupt.
Well, you're talking about Baroque. The thing about Baroque is everybody's got a ghost story.
Right.
Well,
Well, I found that out. Yep.
And, yeah. Now, whether or not they want to talk to you about it is a different topic.
Well, when
But that's
you
the
and
funny
I
thing.
when you and I did the school, they were coming out of the woodwork. But go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. You know, Baroque. they want to say that, what is it? Louisiana is like the most haunted place in America.
Well, they all claim that. They all claim that. Come on now.
Yeah,
They all claim
but
it.
I'm telling you, Baroque has got some history to it.
And I will back you up on that. Even just only doing the school, I have been there by myself on day trips, and I've walked the town. People have recognized the vehicle, come talk to me, and you get a sense just walking through the downtown area that's dead, to coin a phrase. You just feel the spirit and the history there. You know something's there. I agree with that 100%.
And I don't care, and any place. I mean, because all the buildings are older, all the buildings are original. The gravel pit out there by where the Boy Scout woods are at. I mean, you go out there at night, forget about it. It's spooky.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
I've been out there. I've been out there before at night.
I know. I want to go out there with you. So we'll jump ahead. So you've had this interest. You had a person in your life that, you know, had an interest. You know, this. What would you call this guy? Like your uncle-in-law, your uncle. I mean, do you get along with him? Okay, everything okay? Or
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a pretty nice guy.
Good.
I get along with him, and you know, he was kind of the beacon that helped, you know, drive me on a little bit and say, you know, you're not really crazy. You know, there are people out there that kind of research this, that are on the up and up, and
right.
You know, he gave us some advice on some things, and it was interesting, you know, because he gave us some advice on what to do that we should do for this house, you know, because he walks through there and he's like, listen, I want nothing to do with it because you've got some powerful juju going on here, you know. Oh. And so we're like, all right, so what do we do? So he gave us some techniques to try, and just instantly the house was different. Like, it felt empty. And it didn't dissipate the energy entirely, but it dissipated it enough that you didn't feel like you were under security at all times.
Right.
Because that's what it felt like. Because you always had somebody watching you. It was getting to the point where I couldn't sleep. I mean, I was having horrible nightmares.
Wow. But nothing ever, you know, nothing ever attacked anybody or did anything, you know, that we would deem as like a true haunting, you know, like a bad haunting. Nothing like that, huh?
My aunt said that, you know, my aunt said that she was always seeing shadow people,
mm-hmm.
which I did too. I had shadow people, you know, this is another story. I had shadow people follow me to the place I was working at the time. They actually, I'll go into it in a minute, but
you're not the first person I've heard that from, though, Jason. You're not alone. It's happened to me, and you and I have a person we know, you know, mutually. There's an artist, and he's said some of the same stuff, and I've talked to other folks. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the shadow people, my aunt said that she would watch plates in the kitchen float and spin. I never seen any of that. I did have lights turn off on me. I was in my bedroom. I was talking on the telephone. My door was locked. I was the only one in my room, and the lights turned off on me.
Wow.
And again, what really started it was my aunt was waking up in the middle of the night, and she said that she was having people standing over top of her. And we're like, well, what do they look like? She's like, well, they were dressed like Union soldiers, and it was a young man who looked like he was in his 20s. You know, that was the one that I remember. She said she had a couple other ones. I had a video camera at the time, so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get all this on tape,
mm-hmm.
show everybody, and then there, I've proven it. You know, this stuff is real.
Right.
So there was a computer in the living room, and what I would do is I'd turn all the lights off, and I would just sit on the computer. I would almost go into a meditative state because I would be staring at the video screen. I'd play solitaire, and I would listen to music on the headphones. So I was almost oblivious to everything that was going on outside of my vision besides the computers.
Uh-huh.
And slowly but surely, sitting in that dark room on that computer, things would start to happen. And one night, I seen them perfectly with my, my own two eyes. Two balls of light. They just kind of appeared, and they started like flying around and intertwining with one another. And I was like, man, I got to get this. So I picked up my video camera, and I recorded them for like 2 minutes. This was going on, and
Wow.
they're just like dancing around the living room. And I mean, it's fast, and it wasn't bugs. They were orbs.
Okay.
For whatever anybody wants to say that orbs are, this is what they were. They were orbs,
Yep.
for lack of a better term. And they're swirling and interacting with each other. And I have it on camera. And of course I go and I take my camera and I go show all my friends and I see it, and it's like, oh well, it's everybody had an excuse for what it was.
Yeah.
Everybody had a theory. And I was working nights at security for a place here in Sturgis, so I would sleep during the day. Well, I have another cousin who's a little shady. I wake up to go to work, and there's $100 out of my wallet, and my video camera's gone. Guess where my tape was at? So,
Jeez.
right there, yeah. So right there, the best evidence that I have that there's something going on in my house, and it was taken from me, even though they keep telling me that, oh, well, we took your money, but we didn't take your camera. We don't know where that went. So
Interesting.
yeah. So that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I've lost. I didn't have somebody take it, but I told you about us catching one of our first EVPs right around 1987. On a boombox, and we're playing it back. Rewind, play for friends, and sure enough, my buddy, who was there with me when we caught the EVP, went to rewind it, and when he went to hit play, he ended up bouncing on the record button and recorded over our EVP, and lost, instantly lost. Not thinking we should have made a copy before, because it was cassette tape.
Right.
But I know you're feeling. You're just bummed. Had proof.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing. Most of my experiences are personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no problem telling people about my personal experiences because I've seen things. It sounds crazy, but the thing that I've found is the more you open up to somebody about the things that you've seen, you'd be surprised at the stories that people will tell you. I mean, I almost feel like
I think that's good for
just,
the audience to hear too, because you and I have discussed that many times. That we say the things we're saying right now, like, well, it's not, it's crazy, man. Well, it's really not, because back, I remember telling you at least around 2008 when we were forming SMP as a group that it is kind of now. I would get stories from people, and I remember reading a study that USA Today had put out. I forget which institution did this, but they said that well over 60% of people in America had paranormal experiences. Out of 100%,
right, and that's even gone up.
Well, but yet only 20%, we're talking about it. So that I think it's more accepted now. That's where I'm going with this. It's more accepted now than ever before because of the shows, doing what they did at the time. But, the interesting thing to a lot of this, too, is that people come to you and me constantly when they find out we're paranormal people. We've been together when it's happened. And like you were just, illuminating the audience to, is that more people have stories than you think. They really do.
Right. Well, and a good example of that is when I started working my new job, the guy that was training me,
mm-hmm.
he's kind of a builder,
right?
And so I brought in some of my Ghostbuster props, and he's like, "Oh, I got to show your prop to this other guy who builds props." And so this other guy comes over, so we start talking. Well, he was doing costume stuff for a place that we had investigated. And I just made the offhand remark, "Oh, I know that place. The paranormal group I'm with, we investigated that place." And so a little bit later in the day, the guy that's training me is like, "So earlier you mentioned the paranormal group. So you believe in that kind of stuff?" And, as soon as I said, yeah, I believe in it. I've had my own experiences, and I do believe it's real. There's something to it. It was almost like automatically the guard went down. And he's like, well, let me tell you about a couple of things that happened to me.
Yeah. That's how it happens.
And
yeah, that's cool.
That's how it happens,
Yep.
People, I think what happens is, the human brain is programmed to make sense of the world that we live in.
It tries, yeah.
So, yeah, or try to, So, as we grow up and we get older,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if you fall into a certain belief system, those are the rules you're given to play by. And if something that isn't necessarily, I guess you could say, concrete reality happens to you, and it doesn't fit inside those rules, you just dismiss it. You try to rationalize it. And sometimes by trying to rationalize something, the only way to rationalize it is to just sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. And I think that's what a lot of people do.
Well,
And
you're right. What you're talking about there is, it's perception based on something that you can reference to. And you're right, being brought up a certain way in faith, or, your parents or family around you saying, oh, that stuff's nonsense. You get used to hearing it, and, you formulate your perception as being, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. The stuff isn't real, or due to certain faith beliefs, this stuff can't exist. It's a bunch of nonsense. And I'm probably being a little harsh on some of that, but that's what you're saying, and I'm going along.
Right.
I'm going along, and I just had a discussion with somebody about that, about having something to go back to reference to. You have to untrain yourself when you really something happens, or you get the mind to think on your own at a certain age. You start thinking outside that box, and you really have to unlearn that perception and create a new one, the perception of being that, most things are possible if you just open your mind up to it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to believe everything that's fantastical out there in the world, because, and
Right.
I create that word, because you and I have heard some interesting stories from people, and we're just like, wow, that's way over the top. I don't know if I can go that far, but, who's to say? But we're going to take a quick...
At some point...
Go ahead. And we're going to take a quick break.
I was just going to say, some people say that reality is what you make it.
Right.
But at some point, you do have to draw the line.
Well, you do, but again, our perception, isn't all that there is. There's
Right.
much more at work in the universe, and we think as individuals and humans, to where we've gone so far in our evolution as we think we're this big bad thing, at least on our own little ball here in the universe. That math and physics and everything explains everything, and science explains everything, and I just think that it's nonsense. For me, it's nonsense, because that's egotistical on our part. There's so much more out there we're unaware of. But on that note,
Exactly.
everybody hang tight. We're going to be back for more with Jason Griffith right here on the SMP Paranormal Show, on the one and only Paranormal Now Network, mothershipped by the Michigan Podcast Network, and all the great shows over here on these networks. You can catch us also at Podbean. Go over there and look for the Paranormal Now Network, and you'll find a lot of these audio adventures over there. SoundCloud as well. And we'll be back for more right after this. And welcome back, everybody, to the SMP Paranormal Show. I am Dan Holroyd, your host, co-founder, and, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, case lead.
All-around good guy.
All-around good guy. Hell of a guy. With the Southern Michigan Paranormals. We are now SMP Michigan Night Stalkers. I know we've merged with Bob Penny's group. There's a lot of people that play in the Southern Michigan Paranormals. Of course, you're speaking with one of them tonight, Jason Griffith, who's one of our lead investigators, and we've worked some fun cases together. And we're going to get back into where we kind of let off, talking about, I guess, a little bit about people's perceptions and what else is going on out there.
Yeah, something interesting also that I kind of stumbled upon watching TV with my kids. I was watching this show that was talking about what happens to our body as we age. And an interesting fact, we have tiny hairs in our ears that vibrate when they pick up different sounds.
That's correct.
Okay, you think about, all right, what's I got to do with paranormal? Well, come to find out, children and newborns have more sensitive hairs in their ears. They have more hairs, and their hairs are more sensitive in their ears. And as you get older into adulthood, those hairs tend to fall out. So you lose the ability to hear higher frequency noises, which, if you think about it, is kind of interesting if you have children who are able to perceive the paranormal and you have some adults who still can't. I was like, wow, I haven't ever done a study to prove that that's why, but
there is a study on that. You're hitting right on it. Maybe I'll send you that article. There's a phenomenon out there that there's some paranormal people who are using some of these devices that they believe a lot of paranormal experiences are due to such vibrations that are picked up by the ear sound, things that may be indistinguishable, but they can monitor it with this new equipment age we're in at this point. And you're onto it. You're absolutely right. And I've noticed. I mean, it's weird. I think with their wives, we probably have selective hearing. I won't go there. That's a whole other show. But there are times I'm picking up or hearing things, sometimes even wearing headphones, and other people in the house who don't hear a damn thing. And I find that weird, too. That might be just sensitivity. But you're onto something there. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects.
Well, you got to think about cats. You got to think about dogs.
Oh, sure.
They all have exceptional hearing compared to humans. They hear on a completely different frequency. They see light on a completely different frequency.
Yep.
Again, going back to
mothers and grandmothers have acute hearing.
Yep. With eyes in the back of their head.
Yeah, so, kidding. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Let's jump ahead. So, I meet you. I go to Burr Oak and I attend this little festival thing they got there. I'm dressed as a Ghostbuster. We meet. I go to your house, which you could have murdered me, which is kind of funny the way all this went down. I meet you and Steve Sturwald. Sorry, Steve, right. I said your name here on here. And so we get talking.
Now you owe him royalties.
Yep, I got to pay him royalties. Maybe you'll get that pack done. I don't know. Wow, I'm never going to let that go, am I?
Nope.
He's like, I hear about it.
On your back.
I know, right? So we meet, we talk, you're interested in the paranormal, we hit it off. I get you to join the group, and I know, we end up talking about getting into, you tell me about Baroque High School. And then we end up meeting, the janitorial guy that was there at the time, and bada bing, bada boom. We end up in this place. Tell everybody a little bit about the history, a short history of the place. And there's a weird connection to it. And then kind of what happened, because we've been there twice. But I'll let you tell that story.
Well, I mean, on a personal note, it was very cool that I got to go investigate the high school, or the middle school, actually, now. And that's kind of in the same vein as how I bumbled my way onto SMP, was just overhearing you talk about when you were going to go investigate the laminate factory. And it was just these places that I grew up with, but I never had access to go do these things.
Right.
So it's cool to be able to go do these things. So I was very excited to go do the Borough Middle School. The history with it, it started out as, it was like a 3-story building. I think it was always a school. I think I just read someplace that before it was a school, it was something else, and then they remodeled it and turned it into a school.
Right.
And I don't remember what exactly happened to it, but for some reason they ended up knocking off the top tier, and it had another floor to it, and it had like a cupola on the top, and they ended up losing all that. My history with the school, I went to school there for a couple of years, and I got to be in those classrooms in that gym. I do know that it always gave me a weird vibe, and especially when we would go down to the weight room, because the weight room had this like tunnel to it, and if somebody would turn the lights off in the weight room and then lock the door, the only way you could get into the weight room was to go through the front door and then walk the tunnel in pitch black with the light behind you, and then maneuver through this dark room with all these like weight plates to get to the far side of the room to turn the light on. And so that was always really weird, because the weight room was right there by where they used to store the coal for the coal heaters. And again, it's one of these old buildings that has probably sucked up every historical event that's ever taken place within a 5-mile radius of it. You feel the history when you walk into a place like this. And
that's a good way to put that. I mean, I think lots happened around it, and as talking to not only the janitorial individual, we ended up meeting what's his title? What was he, like the superintendent of the school himself, and he had some, a little bit of just a short story for you and I, and a couple other people we met at that first investigation who've been in and out of that school and have had odd things. And then you hear from them too that there's been reports of that all along. I mean, for years and years and years of weird activity going on in there, and I think we were a party to some of it.
Yeah, I definitely think we were, and growing up and being there, you always hear like the urban legends, like, oh, well, they found a dead body under the gym, and the school actually has a fallout shelter in it, and that was one of the rooms that we were in. It had the concrete benches and stuff.
Right.
And if you go back in that fallout shelter far enough, you can actually get underneath the gym floor. Whether or not there's a dead body under it, I highly doubt. But that's one thing. Just being in middle school and you try to freak people out. That's one of the stories that was thrown around. I don't remember anything oddly paranormal happening to me while I went to school there. Because you're always surrounded with kids.
Oh yeah,
you're never alone.
There's a lot going on, right?
Yeah. But I've had people, like I used to work with a woman who, we were in the educational field, and she would have to go there, and she said there's times daylight, broad daylight, she walks in that place and she's like, yeah, this place is weird. Like, I don't want to be here. And
well, I mean,
so
with our first visit there, I know that we still have that footage. Deb caught on her cameras, again, not real big in the whole orb thing, but this was doing something out of the ordinary, moving across the auditorium stage up there.
And then adjusting its elevation to
right
on top of the stage.
Right. And then the second trip, you and I were there, by ourselves at some point, and thinking that, the janitor had left. We thought he was still there because we heard loud banging and some noises, and of course he's long gone. I mean, we had all sorts of stuff, EVPs, sounds, whispering. I would generally tell people that I think that school is haunted, kind of with maybe some residual, because we did some hack box sessions and we got some indication that something's there wanting to communicate, but I don't know, man. There's a lot going on. I didn't feel anything negative ever in the school. Other than the weird story and the weird connection that you brought to my attention, which I didn't know about.
Well, I think that was more think that was more the janitor that was bringing that to your attention. I never really paid attention to it because that movie. If you're talking about the Jeepers Creepers thing, right?
Yeah, the connection there. The guy from Unsolved Mysteries killing his wife. And,
yeah.
Jeez.
I see. We never even talked about it. And the crazy thing was, like, that movie came out when I was going to school there.
Well,
so,
they still. I was just there this summer. Stopped by, took some photos again, and that plaque to that, it's still there.
Yeah,
this guy murdered his wife, and it's still there in honor of him in front of that school. I am perplexed by that. I don't get it. I don't want to go out and protest or nothing. It's just,
yeah, right.
It shouldn't be there.
I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know why it would be there. I really don't.
I don't either. But that still adds. It adds a creep factor to us being there. You know what I'm saying? Because didn't you say either he or both of them had worked there or been there? Or?
I think maybe the janitor said they both worked there. Again, I'll have to look into it.
Yeah.
Because of, for me, like, yeah, he worked there, so that's really weird that.
It's weird.
This guy that murdered his wife.
And then not too far from there, I've visited that school that, where the old couple had seen him with her body in the sheet, trying to bury her in the ground, and that gave inspiration.
Did you end up going out there?
Yeah, I've been out there, and the guy has been storing pigs in there, and it's kind of all the innards are out of the thing, but the building's still there, and it's just it's got the creep factor. If anybody studies, the whole connection, I've seen some YouTube things done on it. It's bizarre. I mean, I've visited both places, and it's just strange. But Burr Oak was fun. I want to thank them, here on the podcast. I'm not going to give out names, but thank them immeasurably. And I hope we can make another connection, because I know our connection is not working there anymore. But hopefully we can try to get back in this year, because I know we were going to. Yeah. We just kind of put it off to the side.
Even if we can't get back in there, it's.
There's a property to work there too. I think if we got a good Sunday night, a good quiet night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
that town.
I was just thinking, like, sometime in the summertime, like, it's an indescribable feeling to be in that town in the summertime in the middle of the night.
Oh well,
I'm not like advocating it, but
I'm agreeing, because when we were there investigating, we were going to get a pizza after 10 o'clock, and everything's shut down, and there's nobody out. Everybody's in the house. I mean, it's like a ghost town, literally. So,
yeah,
just saying.
And no disrespect. But,
no, not at all.
Nowadays, I kind of refer to it back as like the world's biggest campground.
Yep.
But and then, I love Baroque.
I did too.
I've always been in Baroque.
I fell in love with it, man. Like I said, I think I don't know. There's a feel to that little town, and I don't know. There's something there. Maybe we'll figure it out this year. Who knows?
Here's the thing. And I don't know, this is just my theory. I don't know if, and my facts could be a little bit off, because it's been years since I've read into this. But I think there was a farmer by the name of Locke. And where the town is sitting right now was all his property.
Uh-huh.
And the town used to be out by Middle Colon Road, and that's where the original cemetery's at, and that's where the original schoolhouse used to be at. But they moved it. So what happened was, when the railroad was being put through, they couldn't put it through where the town was settled. They had to put it over Locke's property. And so the town asked him, is it okay if we move the town and put it on your property? And he told them, yes, you can, if you change the name of Burr Oak to Locke Station. And they did for 2 years. And then they changed it back to Burr Oak. And I don't know why they changed it back.
Either he died or they paid him off. You never know.
Yeah, and I always thought, all right, well, there's a good ground for somebody to be disgruntled.
Well,
the imagination in me, like, starts taking over at that point. It's like, all right, the Scooby-Doo adventure starts, and it's like, here's the guy that's running around,
right,
dressed in the bedsheet because they changed the name of the town.
That's
like, I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you and your dog.
Yeah, it's Old Man Lot. Yeah. That's funny. I was going to say, excuse me. That's happened to a lot of villages and towns. Even Kalamazoo should have been Bronson, and they were so nasty to Titus Bronson, they ran him out of town. And there's another disgruntled. He's buried somewhere else, but regardless, maybe he haunts his old location. I don't know. You never know. Now,
Right.
after we did the Burr Oak stuff, we worked a private case. There in Colon. Again, that was a short while after we had done the laminate factory, and won't give out the person's name, obviously. But that turned into a very interesting case, and you were very helpful and forthright in picking up on a lot of things. You discovered, some other things going on in the attic that you made me aware of, and you were pretty good. I've got video of you interviewing client, and that turned into a strange case because, not only did we talk to the people who currently live in the home, and I've heard from the husband, by the way, here recently, that they've got some new activity ramping up. Not sure if we're going to end up going back, but
if they let us go back, I am so curious as to
I am too.
what I told you about earlier. I am so curious about that because I'm dying to validate what this guy told me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I said, it was an interesting case, let alone because we had the current resident. She was in touch with the people, the lady who sold her the house, and she grew
Right.
up in the home, and her parents, or at least her father, she felt her father might have been the person that was doing some of the main haunting. Some of that might have been based on a little bit of what we perceived as well, which I still think we were on to a little bit of it, but I don't think that was the main cause, because when you discovered on voice recorder and Hackbox that there were other voices and things and answers coming from a storage space in the attic, which I would have pretty much overlooked. Normally I hit those spaces, but it becomes so cliche, we just don't hit them hardly anymore, because we were getting weird stuff in the bedroom too, but nothing that would have gave cause to react the way the client was reacting, because she was making it worse on herself and her kids than anything, and the husband was aware of that. And we did our best. You did your best. We did our best to try to talk her down from that, and that's a tough thing in what we do. And I think you got your first taste of that because, again, we were talking earlier about perception, and her perception is every time she has an experience or there's a shadow in the house, the first thing she's doing is overreacting and scaring the hell out of the kids. And we didn't feel anything negative was there, and we did our best to move on the father, and we did a bunch of different things in the short time we worked it, but it just continued.
Yeah, and that's kind of one thing that I have to remind myself of too, is like I said, my grandma's house growing up, very negative vibe. You'd go into a room by yourself and you felt like something knew you were there, and they didn't necessarily want you there. And, I never had anything attack me, but it was always ominous, that it was always there in the background.
Right.
And I haven't, as of recently, I haven't necessarily been overwhelmed with the sensation of having something paranormal around me. So when I do kind of walk into it, or, even here in my house, I live in an older house, and there's certain places where I go and I'll have like a quick feeling, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to jump the gun here and scare myself. I kind of have to stop my imagination and just kind of go off facts in a way. How do I feel? Do I feel like I'm being threatened? No. But it's if you're not used to this sensation, if you're not used to feeling something that you can't see, necessarily hear, necessarily touch, but it's there, it's a very weird thing to process.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that's what she was going through, and the fear gets the best of you.
Response.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's tough, as a investigator, again, talking to these clients, you're really trying to give them different tools, like you said for yourself. You're trying to give them the tools to think out loud to themselves that, hey, nothing's hurting me, nothing's chasing me down, this isn't happening. That's, you start eliminating all the negative that's not there, then you realize, hey, it's just doing what it does. And it very well could be too that where this client was living, I think there's a triangle going on there, because not only was there...
Yeah, there's definitely a nexus.
Right, because you had the power station, the transformer station right across the street, then the laminate, and then you got the funeral home not even half block over on the other side of the other house. And didn't they say that
she had a tragic event take place right next door to
Yeah,
her?
the suicide, yeah. So it's crazy, man. Again, it's not, but that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of different things that play there, and I don't think, in the norm.
These small towns.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I just
towns, man.
I don't think anywhere people in the norm think that's kind of an influence, but it is. We can't prove that 100%, but we sure think we onto something, because for the last 70 plus years that people have been doing this type of investigation, those things are too similar to just discount. But you did a good job there. I want to give you props, man. You did a great job, and you were still pretty new to the team, and you've since, like I said, just you've taken the reins and you've done stuff, and you got a great mind. You got a great mind for thinking on things, and you are into the the paranormal in itself. As far as when I got talking to you already had good information, and not just the lingo. You kind of knew what you were talking about. So I respect you for that. It's been nice to have you on board.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun because, like I said, that interest has always been there. Like I had the desire to figure out what was going on. And so to take that and not just be on my own and do it, but to have a team of people to bounce ideas off of, and kind of share connections and get into these cool places that I never on my own would ever have a chance to get in and see. But then to hear you say that I'm actually able to pull my own weight is pretty gratifying.
Well, of course you do. You've had some great evidence catches too. You've sent me stuff, and so you know what you're doing, man. You're old hat at this, and like I said, I'm very happy and honored and proud to have you on the team, and it's blessed to have you as a friend. You're a good guy, and not only do you do the paranormal stuff with me, you also are a Ghostbuster, as part of the Kalamazoo Ghostbusters, and we go out and do community stuff when you get the kids dressed up, and you and Haruka dress up and do your thing, and man, it's been a wonderful thing to meet you and become your friend.
It has. This is, it's pretty important. I really enjoy what I do, and I got a pretty good group of friends with the SMP and with the Ghostbusters, and I wouldn't trade you guys for anything. You guys are great.
I bet you would for some first edition Ninja Turtle stuff, but that's okay. I understand.
Maybe if they were on card on Punch.
But
you know what? I'd sell them and I'd take you guys all out to dinner. So.
Well, I appreciate
maybe
that.
Lunch.
Yeah, I could dig that. Right. Well, depends on where we go. But I want to thank you for being on the program. I know we have so much more to talk about, because we're going to have you on again, and I'm also going to have you co-hosting with me on occasion on this program. So we'll be able to put somebody else in the hot seat. And because I said we jumped around a little bit, and there's so much more that you have to share and things we want to talk about.
Yeah, like I said, I got stories for days. Growing up and being around some of the places. Stories for days.
Yes, for days. Yeah. Yep. The 1 hour version of the show, we can't work them all in, but like I said, we're going to have you on some more, and when you do some more co-hosting with me, we'll cover some of that stuff as well. But I want to thank you for staying up late with me and having patience and being on the program.
Well, absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this and let me be on here.
Hey, no problem. And folks, you can find all of these great shows over at Podbean, the audio adventures of the Paranormal Now Network, SMP Paranormal Show, I Want to Believe Radio. Coming back very soon is Mystical Awakenings with RJ and Deb DeRose. We're happy to have them back on the network, and they do some interesting work as well. We are also going to have other adventures over there. Jason and I will be buddying up on occasion to do Bustin' Makes Us Feel Good. That's a kind of a Ghostbuster type podcast thing that we're going to iron out. Truth of the Matter is a new show where we go directly to the source. So if you have a thought or an idea about something that you think you know about just because you read about it on the internet or saw it on YouTube, trust me, that's not the truth of the matter. We go to the source. You get the facts. Nothing but the facts, ma'am. And not only here, we're mothered by the Michigan Podcast Network. And check us out. You can go over to www.para-now.com. And you can check out our webpage. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. This is Dan Holroyd with the Southern Michigan Paranormals and the SMP Paranormal Show signing off. We'll see you next time out here on the other side of the veil.
This has been a Michigan Podcast Network and Paranormal Now Network production. Join us again next time for the SMB Paranormal Show.